Stop trying to learn all AWS services at once. You're probably wondering which AWS service you need to learn, as AWS has over 200 plus services. Which are the important services that you need to know to have a DevOps or a cloud computing job this year? You want to watch this video as I'll be sharing with you the most effective way which you can use to study on the AWS cloud platform, and of course some of the key services which you must know before you can land a cloud or DevOps job this year. Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this channel, I share a lot of resources around DevOps and cloud computing, how to transition into cloud computing, how to effectively ace your cloud and DevOps interviews, and of course, how to be effective in your cloud and DevOps related jobs. So if you're not yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because I do a lot of videos that can be of help to you in your cloud journey. So how can you effectively learn, or how can you effectively build the necessary cloud or DevOps skills while learning the most important services on AWS? My first tip for you is one service at a time. Take one service at a time. If you want to study AWS, you cannot learn all the 200 plus services. Besides, not all companies are using all the services which Amazon Web Service has, so you must be strategic in the way you're going about your studies. And my best tip is always for you to take one service at a time. If you're studying compute or how compute is being provisioned on AWS cloud, you might want to go through the EC2 service end to end. You start by understanding the various pricing models for EC2. You try to understand the various instance types. You try to understand block storage with EBS. You try to understand how to take snapshots with EC2 instances. You try to understand concepts around auto-scaling around EC2 instances. You try to understand launch templates, launch configurations. You try to understand traffic management with load balancers, target groups, and all the like. So that is just you understanding one service, and you can move from the compute service to networking service, like the virtual private cloud service, where you're looking basically at VPCs, you're looking at subnets, route tables, internet gateways, transit gateways, peering connections, and all the like. So you can't learn all the services at the same time. Take one service at a time. If you're learning compute, master everything compute, maybe with EC2 or with ECS or with EKS. If you're learning networking, master everything with the virtual private cloud service. If you're learning databases, you might want to master relational databases with AWS RDS, or non-relational databases with DynamoDB. And if you're managing or you're looking at understanding access management or identities on AWS cloud, you might want to study the AWS IAM service. So the best tip is for you to take one service at a time. Now, my second tip for you is, as you're taking one service at a time, you should take one project at a time. There are tons of videos on YouTube about projects related to cloud computing, projects related to AWS, projects related to DevOps. You're probably confused if you should go through DevOps projects or you should do AWS projects and all the like. Take one project at a time, and you must, by the way, if you're starting, you must begin with foundational level projects, right? Projects that help you to understand the foundational basics of a given cloud platform. Let me take, for example, AWS. Your provision or you just finished studying a service like IAM. You might want to take a basic project on how to manage identities on AWS, identity and access management, creating users, creating groups, creating policies, and all the like. That's a basic project with respect to identity and access management. The same thing, you might be going through the S3 service. You might want to create a study website and host on S3. You might be doing VPCs. You might want to create one or two VPCs, connect them together, launch an instance in a private subnet, and access it from a public subnet, and all the like. Take one project at a time. As you're studying those services, you pick small scale projects from service to service to service, and master the services one at a time through the various hands-on projects which you are carrying out with respect to those projects. Again, if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, hit the channel subscribe button, like this video, share this video, turn on the notifications. And by the way, if you have not yet started your DevOps and cloud journey and you're looking out to getting started with your DevOps and cloud journey, I have a 1 month orientation bootcamp with the details in the channel description. You want to visit my channel description, click on the link and get more details on my 1 month bootcamp. Now, my third tip for you is do it one step at a time. Cloud computing is not war. DevOps is not war. You can learn one step at a time. You finish learning the service, you carry out the project, you rest, you take the next, you finish learning the service, you carry out the project, you rest, you take the next service, you carry out the project, you rest. It's not war. Do it one step at a time. Once you've been able to learn all the foundational services, I promise giving you how or which services you must understand as far as AWS cloud is concerned. The most important services which you must understand as the foundational services. And with you knowing these foundational services, irrespective of you being on the Amazon Web Service Cloud or Microsoft Azure Cloud or Google Cloud, you can still provision these services the same way. And what are these foundational services? The foundational services are services that cover concepts related to entire user management, where we have the identity and access management service. We have services related to object storage, storing data as objects, where we have the S3 service. We have services related to compute. Remember, AWS has many services for compute, but you won't focus on all those services. You will start your understanding with the key compute services, and they are in steps. You start with the basic Elastic Compute Cloud service, the EC2 service, at the beginner level, and then when you're more advanced, you might want to look at AWS Lambda, which is a compute service for serverless. You might want to look at AWS Elastic Container Service, which is a compute service for containerized applications on the AWS cloud. And then eventually you might want to look at the AWS Elastic Kubernetes Service, which is a container or which is a Kubernetes distribution on AWS cloud that can help you to manage your compute workloads. So you start with the basic identity and access management. You go on to object storage with S3. You do compute, Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2, and you can, before or after compute, you can study the virtual private networks, because everything you do on AWS, you must be able to set up virtual private cloud. How do you set up networks, private networks in the AWS cloud? Using the VPC service. So you must master networking as a whole on the AWS cloud. Now, companies have their databases which they are running on-premise, or they might be running on the cloud. And for you to be able to master databases, you might want to study the AWS Relational Database Service, which is AWS RDS, or you want to study the AWS Non-Relational Database Service, which is the AWS DynamoDB. And after studying DynamoDB, you probably want to understand how to do routing, managing of domains, managing of traffic between domains, and all the like, where you have the AWS Route 53 service, AWS Route 53 for domain management. And of course, most important as well is how to secure resources on the AWS cloud. And security as a whole is a very big concept as far as cloud computing is concerned. So there are a lot of services which AWS has for security. After building or understanding those basic compute, user management, storage, networking, you might want to look at how to secure these resources on the AWS cloud. And after performing security, there is what we call governance at the large scale. Assuming a company is having multiple accounts, assuming a company wants to provision resources or manage resources at scale, then you'll be looking at services like AWS organizations, AWS Control Tower, Identity Center, and of course, managing resources at scale, you might be looking at the AWS Systems Manager, which can help you to manage these resources at scale. And most important, or well, to wrap it up, if you're looking at managing automation of creation of these resources with an AWS infrastructure as code tool, you probably want to study the AWS CloudFormation service. So once you gather all these set of services, which are called foundational services, you can then build on other third-party tools to merge with these basic foundational services which you have. That is when technologies like Terraform come in for infrastructure as code, technologies like Ansible for configuration management, technologies like Docker, technologies like Jenkins for continuous integration and continuous deployment, and of course we have technologies like Docker, like Kubernetes, and all the like. So follow this, understand these basic services, study one service at a time, do one hands-on at a time, go step by step, and keep building. By the way, again, if you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit the channel subscribe button, like this video, share this video, and well, see you in my next video.